Man, it got real quiet real fast. Can I try that again? Tonight what we have witnessed is true greatness. I've listened to each and every one of you who have come on this stage and have proven one after the other that greatness lies within each of you. It's funny when I look at my own self and I see where I have come in my life. It is a testament to the different people who have made those human connections to me. But each and every one of you have had similar connections within your own lives. Imagine if you were to look back into your younger selves and you think about the different people who you have engaged in and have talked to throughout your life. What did they bring to you? Some of them may have brought pain, sorrow, confusion, anger. And then there are those that have come into your life and have spread love and challenged you and given you an opportunity to strive. So allow me to take myself back to a time when I sat in the corner of my grade 6 class. I mean, when you look at me now, you would never know it. But back then, I was that kid that would sit in the far corner, way in the back, not wanting to be seen, not wanting to be heard. In fact, many times if my teacher ever reached out to me and asked me to come up and speak on any topic or read a sentence or anything of that nature, I would freeze and paralyzed, start sweating profusely. Words would come out in pieces. If you were to look at that boy back in the 6th grade, he never wanted to be on a stage like this. No, he wanted to be unseen and unheard. You know what's funny? Sometimes in life you find yourself in situations when people help you to rediscover who you can be. That was Miss Sullivan. Miss Sullivan came to our school that year, first time, from England. 6'6". Yeah. 6'6", she was athletic. And when she walked into the room, like many young kids, her beauty enchanted us. We thought for sure she was the sweetest lady in the world until she opened her mouth. When Miss Sullivan talked, you knew she meant business. When Miss Sullivan said anything, you understood that there was no clowning around. And of course, that just led me back into that far corner where I just did not want to be seen. But isn't it funny how a teacher will always point out that one student that's way in the back of the room to come up and do something? Raise your hand if you've ever had that moment. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure you've done it yourself. But Miss Sullivan did that to me one day. She asked me to come up and to read a passage. And of course, I sat in my corner thinking, that's not my name. But when she called me a second time and the sternness in her voice made me realize that I did have to come up and I did have to perform that passage. And once I got up there, once again, I froze. Unable to say anything. She asked me again and again to repeat, start talking, let's go, come on. Finally, the words started to come out, but they came out in pieces. Miss Sullivan said something to me in that moment that absolutely scared me. What is the matter with you? Now, back then, many teachers didn't have what we would call a filter. They just said what they wanted to say. So when Miss Sullivan said that, I backed up, I went to my corner, and I sat there, dejected, defeated, and doubting my own self. The funny thing is, Miss Sullivan was also my track coach. So when I was outside on the field, Miss Sullivan saw a completely different person. In the classroom was a quiet child that never wanted to be seen or heard, but out on the track, I was flamboyant, energetic, and was right in the front of it all. While watching this, Miss Sullivan noticed something. And her first comment was, why is it that when you are in the classroom, you remain silent, but out here, you are loud and proud? See, in that moment, Miss Sullivan saw something in me. Something that I did not see in myself. The confidence that I had out there when I did not have to use my voice was not the same confidence I used when I was in the classroom. And that's when Miss Sullivan took it upon herself to push me each time, to help me to build that same confidence that I had there or out on the field there. Miss Sullivan rejuvenated that spirit in me. In life, there are 4 people that you will meet, and I call them the pack. P-A-C-K. One who will push you, one who will accept you, one who will comfort you, and one who keeps you moving forward. I want you to take a moment right now to think about the pack in your life. Miss Sullivan was pushing me. Miss Sullivan was the P. And even though throughout grade school, I would often go back to Miss Sullivan knowing that she was the only one that seemed to see me and see the potential in me and connect with me. Other teachers tried to do the same, but it wasn't quite there. When I hit high school, and what is so remarkable is me standing inside this school, I remember track and field would be my life. And as I performed each time, my voice, though it was silent still, I performed on the track like I was loud and proud. But I remember on one specific day at one of the national track meets, we were in the 4x100 meter race. 4 young boys. Their aspirations of getting scholarships, their aspirations of winning a championship held in the balance of that one day. Our coach, Mr. Landry, was always so excited and wanted to see the very best in us. Mr. Landry was the type of person that saw each of us for what we can bring to the table. You have someone like that? Someone who sees, as Mr. San said, the value in you. But it's amazing that on that specific day, 4 boys lined up, and we started that race. And after the first exchange, we were about in second place. We came to that third exchange, and it was my turn to get the baton. I took off like a squirrel on steroids. But my partner couldn't catch me. Time and time again, we're trying to grab the baton, and the baton is not going in my hand. And then finally, it dropped on the ground. And with that, all aspirations of winning national championship. I want you to think back to a time when you failed. When you didn't get what you had expected to receive. When you didn't win what you expected to win. When you were not great. We sat inside that field dejected, knowing that we're not going to get our scholarships. We're not going to be national champions. And I kept thinking about Miss Sullivan and wanting to be back in that corner, unseen and unheard. But there was Mr. Landry, putting his arm around us like a good coach, putting his arm around us and saying, it's all good. You'll get them next time. If you believe it, you will achieve it. Because I believe in you and all of your abilities. See, Mr. Landry became the A. He accepted us for who we were and what we brought to the table. He didn't try to change us or be upset about the situation. Instead, he uplifted us in our worst moments and understood who we were and what we can do. And sometimes life brings failures, and it's okay. The greatest people who have ever walked this planet took those failures, got up, dusted themselves off, and did it again. That's the beauty of who we are as human beings. That failure is not where we have to stay. It is just a mere stepping stone to our greatness. He accepted us. Years later, I'm working. I'm finally out in the job field, and I'm working, and I'm at this beautiful company as an accountant clerk, helping out, because that is what I always wanted to be as my life had progressed. I had always said to myself, you know what, I want to be an accountant. My dad's accountant, whoo, man. I remember he would walk into my house, and every time he walked into the house, he had a strut with him, you know. Let me do it. He had a little strut. Hey, Roger, how you doing? Like Denzel Washington. Now, I remember I used to sit there and I said to myself, I want to be just like him. Ooh, cool cat. And I crafted my entire being around becoming an accountant. And I sat in my office one day as a co-op student working at a firm. And in that time, I remember sitting there at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon one day. And as I'm finishing up the last notes that I had, something hit me. This isn't for me. All this time, I wanted to be an accountant because now I could be behind the scenes. I don't have to be heard. I don't have to be seen. I'm just doing numbers, and I'm okay with this. but it didn't feel like me. I walked into my boss's office, and there was Ken sitting there. And Ken looked at me and I said, Ken, I can't do this. This is not me. I want you to think about moments when you were doing something that you felt after a while, that's not what I want to do. We actually heard someone up on this stage talk about it himself. But he had his whole vision of him being a poet and then turning around and realizing this wasn't what he needed to do. Sometimes these things happen in our lives. And when I left there, I went home, and there was my mother on the porch, and my mom is sitting there reading her book, and as she's reading, she sees me pull up, and I sat down beside her, and in that moment, I looked at my mom, and I said, Mom, I think I want to join the family business. My father and I had not gotten along for a long time. And I knew that it was going to be a transition for myself, but I knew in that moment it would be a great transition. It would be great for me to finally step up and come out of the corner that I had been in so long. And with my father, and knowing how he was, very strict, very, very strong man, this was my time to finally shine. My mom looked at me and she said simply this: you will know when the time is right. You will be ready and you will find the greatness within you, because you know what, son? Being great isn't about you. It's about how you inspire others to find their greatness. So if you are able to find your way through this path, I'm sure that others are going to be inspired by you. And I worked hard for my father. I worked hard learning the business. I worked hard getting his approval. I worked hard to find me. I had the right people. I just didn't see it. You ever have the right people in your life, you just are blind to seeing that they're right there? Miss Sullivan pushed. Mr. Landry accepted. And every time I fell and I got back up, and I fell and I got back up, and I fell and I got back up, Mom became the sea. Comfort. She comforted me every time with her words of wisdom and her beautiful smile and her cheerful, cheerleading attitude. Mom consistently comforted me in my moments of despair. Life has shown me different parts and has allowed me to grow as a person. It's allowed me to see myself for who I could be. It has allowed me to look at the different progressions of my life, and I'm hoping that it's allowing you to look at the progressions of your own, to see how you have gotten to where you are right now. And you are still young for most of you. There's much more out there. There is a sea of unimaginable possibilities waiting for you. You just have to find the right connections and to find where you want to be. Ironically, throughout that entire time with my parents and working in that company, I grew. I found a voice. I started to speak a little bit more. I learned how to feel comfortable talking to people and getting to know people. Until one day, I stepped into the office of a brand new supervisor. of one of the companies that we had dealt with. And as I walked into his office, I remember him sitting behind his computer, his red hair, blue eyes. As I stepped in, I said, "Hi, how you doing? My name is Roger, and I just wanted to introduce myself and welcome you." You know what he did? Nothing. He sat there in silence and just looked at me. I tried to talk some more, and what was 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. But in that period of time, I realized who he was. He was no different than me. He was an introvert. And I did not know how to handle an introvert. So I went back to my office, said a few things that I can't say here, and I realized that I needed help. And that's when I joined an organization that helped people to learn how to communicate and become great leaders. And I learned how to use my voice properly. I learned how to create masterful magic from just using this beautiful voice that I have. It is beautiful, right? Say it's beautiful. Say it's beautiful. Say it's beautiful. Thank you. It's beautiful. I use this voice of mine to help me speak. No longer in the corner anymore. That young boy had moved along in this progression of life. And all of a sudden, I'm doing a speech one day, and a gentleman comes up to me, and he puts his hand on my shoulder after I'm finished my speech, and he says to me, "One day, you are going to be a champion. I can feel it." Now, many of you in that moment might say, "What? Nah." But he kept saying it. Each time that I spoke, each time that I finished a speech, each time that I completed a phase in the program, there he was. "You will be a champion. I can feel it." I want you to take a moment and think about people in your life that see things in you that you don't see in yourself. Moments when they say something that you never saw. They were the new eyes for you. That was Sanjay. And Sanjay became my K, a reason to keep moving forward. Sanjay taught me that you can have all the natural abilities you want. You can see things from your own perspective, but if somebody else sees something more in you, that is a gift. That is a beautiful feeling to know that somebody could see something in you that you never saw in yourself. And with that, that brings greatness. That brings the greatness that you didn't even know you had. But it's kind of like what my mom said, being great isn't always about you. It's about how you inspire others to find their greatness. And that's what Sanjay did by becoming that K in my life. By allowing me to understand the value of who I was and that I should keep moving forward. How can you imagine if I had not met P-A-C-K? Where would I be? Maybe I wouldn't be on this stage right now speaking to all of you. Maybe if Sanjay didn't continue to push and tell me that I would be a champion one day, I wouldn't have made it to the World Championship of Public Speaking 4 times and placed top 3 in the world. Maybe if I didn't have my mother there comforting me each and every way, each and every step, if I didn't have her there to be my cheerleader, where would I be? If Mr. Landry never accepted us for who we were in that very moment and said, you know what? I know you got it. You got this. Just believe in yourself. Where would I be? And of course, without the 6'6" athletic teacher who pushed me and knew there was more to me than even I knew, where would I be? Each one of you has a pack. And if you don't know who your pack is, take a moment tonight and think about it. Who in your life pushes you beyond your limits? Who accepts you time and time again for who you are? Who is there when you falter to comfort you and pull you up? And who, after all that is said and done, keeps moving you forward? Now, you might be wondering, whatever happened to those 4 boys that day? Well, the following year, in our senior year, we went back to the World Championships. And yeah, we won it all with a record time. But that just goes to show you, life is about having a pack. Life is about understanding who you are. Life is about seeing the greatness within yourselves. Life is about taking that same greatness and then passing it on to someone else to see the greatness within themselves so that they can dream big dreams. They can have large aspirations. They can understand who they are and be accepted for their colors, their creeds, or their religions. But more importantly, that they can walk amongst all of you feeling proud to be who they are in their own skin. I was once a shy young boy who sat in a corner of a classroom and never wanted to be heard or seen. Today I stand before you in front of thousands of people, speaking on a regular basis, sharing my stories and sharing my knowledge and trying as hard as I can to inspire others because others inspired me. Who's inspiring you? And you? And those in the back? Who's allowing you to find your greatness? And who are you inspiring to find their greatness?